Welcome to Mysteries to Solve.
In the year 1901, a group of sponge divers got lost in a storm and stumbled onto a shipwreck that would break history. Inside it, statues, coins, jewelry, and one small, unassuming lump of corroded bronze that everyone ignored for 2 years. That lump of bronze would turn out to be more advanced than anything humans built for the next 14 centuries. Scientists would spend over 100 years trying to figure out what it actually was. And even today, with X-rays, CT scanners, and supercomputers, we're still finding secrets buried inside it. This is the story of the Antikythera mechanism, the machine that shouldn't exist. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why some historians call this the single greatest archaeological discovery of all time, and why it's still rewriting what we thought we knew about ancient Greece.
A crew of Greek sponge divers, led by a captain named Demetrios Kontos, is caught in a storm near a tiny island called Antikythera, a rocky speck of land between Crete and mainland Greece in the middle of nowhere. They wait out the storm, and once it clears, one of the divers, Elias Stadiatis, goes down to check the seabed for sponges. He comes back up in a panic. He tells the crew he saw a pile of dead bodies and horses lying on the ocean floor. Now, that sounds like the setup to a horror movie, but what he'd actually found was even stranger. A Roman-era shipwreck, over 2,000 years old, littered with bronze and marble statues so lifelike in the murky water that they looked human. The wreck sat about 45 meters down, deep enough that divers using nothing but basic diving suits risked decompression sickness on every trip. One diver would later die doing this recovery. Others were left paralyzed. They dragged up statues of gods, glassware, jewelry, coins, a literal treasure fleet frozen in time since roughly 60 BCE. And in 1902, an archaeologist named Valerio Stace was going through the crates of recovered debris when he noticed something odd. A chunk of rock with a gear embedded in it. A gear in a 2,000-year-old shipwreck. At the time, most historians assumed this was simply impossible. Geared machinery like this wasn't supposed to exist until at least the 14th century, in medieval European clockmaking. So for decades, this thing just sat in a museum drawer. A curiosity nobody could explain. Here's where it gets wild. The object had corroded and fractured into more than 80 separate fragments, the largest barely bigger than a smartphone. Inside those fragments, over 30 hand-cut bronze gears, some with teeth smaller than a grain of rice. For decades, scholars floated theories. An astrolabe? A navigational tool? Some kind of astronomical clock? The breakthrough didn't come until 1951, when British science historian Derek de Solla Price got obsessed with the thing and spent nearly 2 decades studying it. In the 1970s, he got access to X-ray and gamma-ray imaging, technology that let him peer inside the corroded bronze without destroying it. What he found nearly broke his brain. Hidden inside the layers of gears was a differential gear train, a mechanism that allows one gear to rotate at a different rate than another based on the difference between 2 separate inputs. This is the same principle used in modern car transmissions. Historians thought differential gearing wasn't invented until the 16th century. This device was built around 100 to 150 BCE. That's a 1,600-year gap that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. And then in the early 2000s, a team using a custom-built 3D X-ray CT scanner. Literally, they built a machine strong enough to see through solid bronze, uncovered something even more staggering. There was writing. Tiny, densely packed inscriptions covering the mechanism, some letters just 1.2 millimeters tall. Thousands of characters of ancient Greek text, basically an instruction manual explaining what the device did. And what it did was almost unbelievable for its time. Picture a small wooden box, roughly the size of a shoebox, with a hand crank on the side. Turn that crank, and on the front face, a pointer sweeps around a dial showing the position of the sun and the moon in the zodiac on any date you choose, past or future. A separate little ball, half painted black and half white, rotates to show the exact phase of the moon that night. On the back, there are two large spiral dials. One tracks a 19-year lunar solar calendar cycle used to reconcile the Greek calendar with the actual motion of the moon. The other predicts eclipses, both solar and lunar, years in advance, and even tells you roughly what time of day the eclipse would occur. There's evidence it may have also modeled the erratic motion of 5 planets known in antiquity: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, using ingenious pin and slot gearing to mimic their looping, backward-seeming paths across the sky. And, as if that's not enough, one dial even tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Pan-Hellenic Games, including the Olympics. So, somebody in ancient Greece built a hand-cranked machine that functioned as a calendar, an eclipse predictor, a lunar phase tracker, a planetary model, and a sports scheduler, all inside a box you could carry under one arm. This wasn't a toy. This was precision engineering that requires understanding gear ratios, astronomical cycles, and mechanical design so advanced that nothing comparable shows up in the historical record again until medieval astronomical clocks, more than 1,000 years later. Nobody knows exactly who built it. Some researchers point to the island of Rhodes, a hub of astronomy at the time, and connect it to the school of the astronomer Hipparchus, whose lunar theory seems to match the mechanism's calculations almost perfectly. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If this level of technology existed once, how much of it did we simply lose?
Here's the part that keeps historians up at night. The Antikythera mechanism isn't crude. It isn't a rough first attempt. The gear cutting is precise. The mathematics is sophisticated. The engineering is confident. Confident craftsmanship like that doesn't usually appear out of nowhere. It usually means there was a whole tradition behind it. Earlier versions, workshops, engineers passing down techniques. Which means somewhere there were probably other machines like this one. Maybe simpler, maybe even more advanced. And they're gone. Melted down for scrap metal, most likely, the way most ancient bronze objects met their end. We only have this one because a ship carrying it sank in a storm and got buried in mud and sand, hidden from human hands for 2,000 years. That means our entire understanding of ancient technology might be resting on an accident. One shipwreck, one lucky discovery, one piece of corroded bronze that almost got thrown out because nobody realized what they were looking at. Researchers are still working on it today. In the past few years, teams have used new imaging techniques to propose updated reconstructions of the front dial, argue about exactly how many gears originally existed, and debate the machine's precise starting date. We may never fully agree on who built it, or how many of these machines once existed, or what other lost inventions vanished right alongside it.
So the next time someone tells you that ancient people were primitive, remember this. Over 2,000 years ago, someone built a mechanical computer capable of predicting the sky. And it sat undiscovered and misunderstood for over 100 years after it was pulled from the sea, because nobody could imagine that something like this was even possible. Which makes you wonder, what else is sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now, waiting for someone to stop, look closer, and realize what they've actually found? If this blew your mind, subscribe, because next time we're diving into more, and trust me, it's just as strange as this one.